Hi, welcome to Modern Lifekeeping. I'm your host, Lori Christine. Today we have a special guest, Kimberly Spencer from Crown Yourself, and she's also the CEO of Communication Queens. Hi, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Lori, thank you so much for having me on. It is an honor to be here with you today, and I'm doing phenomenal. I am the transformer of stories. So that has always been my business, but that's been the through line through every career iteration that I've had. I mean, I started out transforming people's stories as a screenwriter, creating movies that ended up changing. I wrote one film and it literally changed three people's lives. And when you hear the movie, it's called Bro. It stars Danny Trejo. It is a hardcore, hard partying freestyle motocross movie. And when I've showed my clients that, they're like, "That movie changed three lives," I said, "Yes, it did," because it changed the life of one of the actors in the film. It changed the life of one of the audience members who was there at the premiere, who I personally knew, and it changed the life of a kid in a cancer ward at the Children's Hospital who loved freestyle motocross. And because of a weird connection that I had to this film, I was able to change his life, in a small way. And like my story, then I started out my career in screenwriting, and to support myself, I started out teaching Pilates. And that was what I did for 13 years to support myself in my career in Hollywood. And then that led into me becoming the president of an e-commerce company, which then, after I was bought out of that, led into me starting my own business with crownyourself.com, and then now growing into our podcast casting agency, Communication Queens. But all along the way, like as a Pilates instructor, I was changing people's stories about what was possible after their surgeries or pregnancy, for what was possible with their bodies. With our e-commerce product, we were selling a back stretching chair. I was changing people's perception about what was possible for their back pain with our product. And then fast forward into coaching, that's like what I did all day, every day. I've always been a storyteller, and I found that the stories that we tell ourselves are typically the ones that we believe the most heartily, but a lot of them aren't necessarily true because, as you know, Lori, like, we are meaning makers, and the meaning that we create shapes our perception and our experience and our reality.
That's right. I love that. That's so clear. I can definitely see that label on your jar.
Yes.
Storyteller, transformational storyteller. That's a big part of what I do too, in the grief portion in particular, because it's very hard to know what story to tell about yourself when you've experienced sudden grief. And so I teach people how I use that tool in particular. That it's a great tool to have, right? And that leads me to another thing that you said in that podcast that I'm a firm believer in, and that's how important our language is and the words that we choose. And I wanted to know, for me, I read a book many, many years ago about how many times, for example, women say they're sorry, how we disempower ourselves through our language. And it just fascinated me. And I've read more books, The Power of the Spoken Word by Florence Scovel. And I wondered how you came to realize how powerful words are.
I came to realize how powerful words are through my transformation when I was 19 years old, battling bulimia. I mean, I had just stumbled upon Pilates. I'd been looking for a way. I'd been bulimic for 8 years, and I was searching for a way to recover and heal. I found Pilates, so that was more the somatic side. But I once I started to kind of step outside myself and listen to the way I was talking about myself and my body, I was horrified at how nasty and mean I was to myself. And that was how I started to reshape my self-talk. I healed myself from a 10-year battle with bulimia within 2 years with no psychological or medical intervention. And it came from a combination of shifting the self-talk, shifting the self-beliefs, shifting some habits. I stopped weighing myself every day, and shifting the somatics. I actually started to activate my parasympathetic nervous system with Pilates, which was retraining my body from living in such a heightened sympathetic nervous system state, where I was in a state of chronic stress because I grew up with an addict for a father. And that experience of always waiting for that next thing, always kind of being on guard, never fully being able to relax. My nervous system didn't know what relaxation was. And I used to think and joke, and I was like, oh, relaxation, like, I don't know how to do it. And I took that as like a badge of honor as a high achiever. It allowed me to accomplish a lot of things, but it burnt me out radically. And so the combination of self-talk with somatics is what I bring into my business now and what I bring into my coaching, because it's not like we can shift how we experience life just by shifting our language. When we listen to ourselves speaking about our experiences, when we just take that sort of omniscient perspective, it suddenly we see how we're framing life. And I mean, I experienced with my father passing a few years ago, the shift of my own language and energy around death, because I ended up losing 4 family members within the span of a year, and 2 family friends. And that experience shifted my language of how I languaged grief, of how I language. So like whenever I was feeling something emotionally deeply, and emotions are energy in motion, and grief is a biological process. It has to be processed through the body. So I would allow myself, and as a mother of 2 young kids, like there were times that I had to cry. There were like, grief hits you randomly. And there were times where I would just experience a wave of like deep emotions. And we would just say in my family, like, mommy's just working through her process. It's just a process. There's no meaning beyond, like, it doesn't make anything mean about anybody else. It's just my own journey, and doing the best I could to navigate that with my kids. But
and we're responsible for the meaning that we place on our experiences, and we can control that with our thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, we can control that, and we can guide it, depending upon the meaning that we choose to assign to every experience.
I love that. And that's exactly the work that I do. And I had a conversation with someone, it was last week. I tend to, I don't know, I guess I say kind of outrageous things, but I totally believe that we can heal ourselves without medication. I believe that we can heal mental health issues without medication. And, there is a biological side. Of course, you described it. When we live in flight or fight, we're constantly on guard for when's the other shoe going to fall. We have a chemical imbalance going on in our body because it's been created through these mechanisms. It's real. I'm not denying that that's not real, but we can use different thoughts to get us out. The thoughts got us there, right? So why can't the thoughts get us out? But so many people want to take medicine, and they want to regulate their emotions through medication. And that, to me, gives away their power, because we all have the power within ourselves to just use our free will to manage what we think.
I think there's a time and a place, because everybody has their breaking point for medicine. I think we as humans need to become more comfortable with living in a paradox, that it's a yes and. So certain things like medication, I believe, are tools.
Yes.
It's when we look at them as crutches, as the solution, where we put the solution outside of our own selves. That's when we start to get into trouble.
Yes.
Because there are tools. I mean, sometimes with stress, there are needs and needs for that space. And there's also, well, how are you thinking about it? And there's also, well, how are you treating your body? What's your microbiome doing? Like, how is that affecting? Because your gut sends 80% more signals to your brain than your brain does to your gut. So the ability to look at, what am I eating? What am I putting into my diet? And making sure that those questions and that foundation, I always say, take your meds, which meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. Look at those 4 as the first foundation. And you can see, absolutely, is there a correlation? Because sometimes those basic health principles of just having some meditation time, exercising your body, moving it, releasing that energy and motion. We're not meant as human biological beings to be sedentary all day. We're not meant to be sitting in a desk all day. That's not not how we were built. sleep is a key factor in that. And so when you look at that at meds and then medicine being and of course I'm not a doctor, so I'm not able to, prescribe or say anything like that, but I can definitely say that those four bases of looking at how is your energy. I mean, I can say that my mental health, when I was bulimic and struggling at my worst, I wasn't sleeping. My diet was absolute crap. It was like frappuccinos on a daily basis. I mean, that's just sugar and coffee and just pure crap. And I was drinking soda, and I was eating some things, and then I was purging. So obviously I was throwing off my biochemistry. So was it thoughts? Yes, absolutely. Was there also biological factors? Yes, absolutely. And both had to be addressed, because I think where I get into a challenge is when I see a lot of coaches saying, "Oh, it's just change your thoughts," and I completely agree. I'm like, yes, and let's look at what's on all four planes of existence. Yes. Let's look on what's your spiritual relationship like? Not religious necessarily, but what is that connection to that divine, that purpose, that collective consciousness, whatever that is? What's your mental? What's your thoughts? Yeah. What's your emotional on a daily basis? Like, let's look at your emotional regulation, and then let's look at what's also happening on the physical. Mm. Is it your diet, your exercise, your sleep, and your money? Because money happens in the physical realm too. Sure. And money is a factor which can be addressed by beliefs, but being able to, and all can be looked at through the lens of thought, but we also have to then transfer our thoughts into action. It Absolutely. Has to go through that plane into actual action. So what does that actual action look like? What is the person who is feeling confident and strong doing on a daily basis? Well, they're probably not sitting on the couch eating Doritos. Like that's so you may be thinking something positively and having those thoughts. It also has to translate into the physical realm, into the physical plane, into action. And what is that action that those thoughts then translate into?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I would never say it's just managing your thoughts. There's so much more to it. It's listening to your body, right? It's aligning with your authentic self. There's so much more to it. And sometimes we do need medication in order to gain the clarity to be able to transform those aspects of our life that need healing. But it's when we get stuck thinking that medication solves the problems. I have to agree. And I think that's where a lot of people think, well, I don't really need to do the deep work or the hard work because I'm taking meds. And no, it needs to be in conjunction with doing the hard work, right? Learning how to manage your mind and listen to your body and follow your heart, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the factors that a lot of society is missing in that whole equation is play. Like, you look at a child, and I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and there is a natural curiosity. There is an innate desire to learn and to explore and to grow. And there was a study done on creativity. This compared 5-year-olds to high school and college graduates. And the creativity just completely went down for finding solutions by the time people had graduated college. But you look at a 5-year-old and you see the curiosity and you see the exploration. And I believe our children are here as much to teach us as we are to guide them. And in that reflection of our children, especially with my own, I see, oh, I need to give myself a little bit more grace. Oh, I'm being a little hard on myself. Oh, he's demonstrating this, and that's a quality that I have that I've maybe tried to repress. Oh, he likes to just go off and start new things and just do it. And like, I realize, oh, I need to give myself permission to just go off and just start and do the thing. So we look at we can learn so much from our kids, from the ability to see how we could experience life in a more playful and curious way. One of my favorite books is The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And in one of those 15 commitments is play, and learning how do you play? Do you play with strategy? Do you like to play the game of life? I mean, you change your perception and your belief systems to where that money becomes a game, and it becomes so much more fun than, oh my gosh, it's such a struggle. This is so hard. You
Yeah.
same with your body, same with your weight, being able to
Those,
play.
yeah, those are the stories we tell. Money
Mhm.
doesn't come easy, right? Money doesn't grow on trees. Well, yeah, it kind of does. It's paper. Yeah. So yeah, and if we
At
change,
least for now.
yeah, I think we're resigned to struggling a lot. It's that language again. Life is hard. No, it's only hard if you think it is.
And
It's
who taught us that?
right. I think society, our parents, so
Mhm.
everything,
Yeah.
right? And
I call it plagiarized programming, because as we go along, we adopt these belief systems and these expectations that we think we need to buy into, and they're not necessarily true. I
illusion.
remember yeah, they're complete illusions. And I remember when I was 16, and I just won this award for screenwriting, and I got to be mentored for a year by a professional screenwriter. And I walked into this meeting and I was so excited. And I was like, I was the female, I was like Elle Woods embodied. So I was there, I had my bag, I was so excited, and I walked up and I was just introducing myself like I do. And there was this gentleman standing by the donuts, because they always have donuts in writers' rooms. And he looked at me, he's like, oh, give you 30 years in the industry and see if you're that smiley, because he was like, hey, smiley. And I was like, I looked at him and I remember thinking, if I'm in this industry for 30 years and I feel like that, I'm out, done. Like, when did you decide that you had to be miserable? And it was at that moment, I was 16 years old, where I realized the power of the decisions and the stories that we tell ourselves, because I was like, I don't want to buy into that story. I would never. And that's why in NLP, which I work through with my clients, there's a concept called modeling, and you're modeling excellence. Well, so often we as kids, we learn how to walk, we learn how to talk, because we're modeling those that we see around us.
Sure.
And if we have to, we become adults and as we mature, look at, who are we modeling? Are we modeling a standard of excellence, or are we modeling what we were taught and that we think we need to behave like that? Are we modeling, because you end up behaving like the 5 people that you most surround yourself with?
Sure.
And I always equate that to, it's not just the people that you think are like your best friends, like it's the podcasts you listen to. So that's why I love, podcasts like yours, Lori, who are just spreading love and positivity and beliefs change and challenging, and who are doing that because you're exposing your audience to whole new belief systems and whole new possibilities. You're allowing them an experience of a new environment in their minds, and we can never outgrow. We only, like, you have to change. Let me reframe this. You have to change the environment, whether that is the external environment in which you're living in, or the internal environment of like what is going on inside your head, or the internal environment of like what you're putting into your body and what you're doing with your body.
Absolutely. And what I like to teach people and show people is that what's going on in here is mirrored on the outside. So when you're having conflict and disappointments and all this other stuff, that's showing you how you're feeling inside, right? It's a great indicator. And the other thing I wanted to mention that you said before about your children, that I think that we've lost in our shuffle, and I don't know if it's competition, I'm not sure what it is, but it's the beginner's mind. And that's what these kids have. They come in and they're just in awe, right? Everything is the biggest, greatest thing they've ever seen. And we've lost that. And I don't know if it's, we don't want to be vulnerable, right? Or we've been beaten down when we were 16 and people laughed at us for having, tenacity, all these different things. But it's the beginner's mind that we've kind of lost sight of just finding the joy in simple things. And that's what I want to bring back for people, because we're taking life a little too seriously.
We're taking so much way too seriously. And I don't know who said it, but he's like, it's just life. No one gets out alive. Like,
No one gets out alive.
so
No.
you might as well live it in a way that brings you joy. Like, my question is, like, do you want to live the next 40 years miserable, or choosing, like, I don't care if it's delusional. Like, I would rather choose to live in a projection of abundance, of joy, of laughter, of play, than in a projection of I'm so miserable, I'm going to my 9 to 5, like here's my, this is just life, that sort of Eeyore mentality. I never ascribed to it. I never bought into it. And I may have bought into it for like a hot 6 months after I was bought out of my e-commerce company. But I remember that moment when I found out I was pregnant with my son, and I was like, this version of me who was blamey, shamey, and complainy, like I was like, I don't want that to be the mother of my children. Like I had to up level my own identity to be in the role of mother that I knew I needed to be for my son. And it's when we allow ourselves to have that identity shift, it's scary as hell, because it does require us that sometimes not everybody's going to like it. I mean, I got made fun of as a 30-year-old woman teaching Pilates for my positivity by some of my clients. And I had to have a very uncomfortable conversation with them. I'm saying, I'm sorry, I've changed my mindset. I've shifted my attitude. I've done a lot of internal work, and I'm not going to we're not going to tolerate this bullying that's going down because you're like 40-year-old women, like knock it off.
Because you're uncomfortable.
Because you're uncomfortable with my joy. I'm so sorry but that one's on you. And having those conversations to be able to step into that level of courage. And that is the greatest vibration. If we're talking, we talked about the body, but the body is this magnetic and electric transmitter. And in the laws of the universe, the law of vibration, you attract what you are. And so as you shift your vibration to being one more of courage, to living more courageously, which I think in our current paradigm of a very serious world, living joyfully, choosing to have fun, choosing to find the curiosity and exploration in every moment of life, and choosing to be growth minded and choose belief systems that may not be accepted by a lot of society. That is a huge act of courage. And in doing so, you will find that new flock of people, because there's fight and flight and freeze, but there's also flock. And that's the one that scares most people, because when you're in that group of the people that you're so used to and you're so familiar with, when you start up leveling your identity and changing, it will make those people in the group uncomfortable. Some may choose to change and evolve too. Others may not. And that's where it still requires you to have the courage to leave the flock. And this is a biological thing, so it freaks us all out. Because in ancient days, when we were being chased by saber-toothed tigers, going off on your own, leaving the flock that you knew, meant death, basically, until you found your next tribe. So moving from flock to flock as fast as possible. That's why masterminds, podcasts, coaching, mentorship, these are such valuable tools, because when you start to surround yourself with a new flock, then your neurology and your vibration starts to adapt to that.
That's right. Yes. I actually left a flock and then had a lot of lessons still to come up. I still kept picking people that I wasn't aligned with, but that experience allowed me to really see that's what was going on. I was staying with people too long. I was staying with the wrong people. And now it's crystal clear to me. But if I hadn't gone through that, I would still be spending time with people that really aren't aligned with me, that don't understand me, that think I'm silly, right? Think I'm out, think my thoughts are outrageous. And really what all I heard you say, really this whole interview, was choose. Choose, choose, choose. Choice, choice, choice. We were given free will. We are given the ability to choose. We choose our thoughts. We choose our actions, right? And that's our power. And people are giving up their power when it's right within them.
Yeah. And being able to just make that decision. And most people are really crap at making decisions.
Let's wrap it up by maybe you just giving us a little bit of information about how you transform the lives of the people that you work with.
So I start by working them through looking at what's going on in their subconscious mind. We look at the context, not necessarily the content, and I put them through timeline therapy, NLP, hypnosis, to really go to town on their subconscious mind. From there, we dive into high performance curriculum as a certified high performance coach, and my Queen Bee coaching curriculum, which takes them through their mindset, their skill set, their systems, their branding, their marketing, their sales, their vision, their people, the projection of potential future challenges, future issues, really allowing them to get a foundation for both their life and their business and their performance as the leader. And then give them rockstar community support to really surround them and envelop them with absolute every tool that they need to allow them to feel fully embodied as the leader that they are.
That's exciting. And how can people reach you and listen to your podcast?
Well, you can reach me at crownyourself.com. And if you're interested in getting booked on podcasts, then head on over to communicationqueens.com. And my podcast is The Crown Yourself Show.
Oh, thank you. This has been really fun today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. It's been a true pleasure.